Hello guys, today we are going to check the topic about the relative clauses, and first of all I am going to explain you what are they. They are going to be specifically non-essential parts of a sentence. What does that mean? That the only function that they are going to have is that you are going to add meaning or you are going to add more details, extra information. This is the thing, that you are going to add extra information about the nouns that you previously have introduced in any of your statements. Okay, for example, here in the one that you have at the very beginning, it says, for example, the woman who visited me in the hospital was very kind. What does that mean? That this information that you have in green is referring to the noun that you have already introduced. What does that mean? That this who, that is actually the relative clause, is going to be giving us more information about the woman that you have already mentioned. Okay, the same in the second. For example, when you say the umbrella that I bought last week is already broken, it is the same. This clause is referring to the umbrella that you have already just mentioned. Also, in the following one, for example, when you say the man who stole my backpack has been arrested, it is the same. This clause is referring to the man. And finally, for example, when you have the weather, for example, the weather that we had this summer was beautiful, it means that this noun, for example, you are going to be using it to give more information about the weather. Okay, that is the thing that we are doing here. That is a relative clause in general. Just for you to create relative clauses, you are going to be introducing them, guys, with something that we call a relative pronoun. Okay, whenever you want to introduce a relative clause, the first thing that you need to mention is a relative pronoun. Okay, and we are going to have different kinds of pronouns. For example, if you have who and that, you are going to be using it for people. Which and that, you are going to be using it for animals or things. Where is you are going to be using it when you are referring to a place. When it is exclusively for time, in specific when you are using a time expression. And whose you are going to be talking about possession. It can be any kind of possession, for people, for animals, and for things. Okay, here you have some examples. Here, for example, the word that you have involved is going to be your relative pronoun. So that is the beginning of your relative clause. Okay, check this out. That's the woman who bought my house. Whenever you have a person, remember that you use who. The horse which Mary was riding is very beautiful. Remember that this which is referring to an animal or to a thing. In this case, for example, the horse. In the following one, we have we found the wood where I used to go. For example, this word you are going to be using it for a place. And in the following one, for example, when you say I will never forget the day when I graduated, in this one, for example, you are using it when for a time expression. That in this case is the day. And finally, for example, when you use whose, it means that you are following the idea of a possession. Okay, or that something that belongs to somebody. For example, you have the mother whose child is missing is very sad. This, for example, the possession you are talking about the mother. So the mother is it is going to be in possession of the child. Okay, so be very careful with these ones because you are going to have a specific use for every single one of these relative pronouns. Be very careful with them. Okay, on the other side, guys, you are going to have two kinds of relative clauses. You are going to have the ones that we call defining and the other ones that you call non-defining. Okay, as of the defining clauses, you are going to use, for example, necessary information. It means that some information is essential in order for you to make a thing different from another. Okay, for example, when you say I called my brother who lives in Ontario, this clause is helping you to define the noun that you have already mentioned before. Okay, in these relatives, for example, you are also going to use instead of who or which, you can use that. There is no problem. You can do it that way. It means that, for example, in your sentences, you can write which or that without any change. It doesn't matter, there is no problem. And remember that also if you have this structure, for example, when you have a subject and a verb, the relative pronoun can be omitted. This is only going to happen, remember, in the definite clauses, the ones that are going to be, the ones that are going to be giving essential information or necessary information. On the other hand, we are going to have the non-defining. You are going to find them specifically between commas, for example. Whenever you are just mentioning just extra information, you are not defining anything. Okay, so for example, you can say, my brother who lives in Ontario is older. What does that mean? That this information that you have between commas is not that important. Actually, you are just making it to give us more information that is not essential. You are just mentioning because you consider it interesting, but actually it is not essential. Okay, in this case, with the non-defining relative clauses, remember that we cannot use that. In this case, it is totally necessary, guys, that you use specifically who or which. Okay, also in this one, in the non-defining one, as you are going to be writing the sentence between commas, you cannot omit the relative pronoun. Okay, so be very careful with that one. We cannot commit the relative pronoun because we are going to have the information between our commas. Okay, in this exercise, for example, the one that you have here, I want you to check these sentences, and you are going to select in this one, for example, you are going to select in which sentences you are going to use who, and in which sentences you are going to use that. Okay, just pause the video and try to complete your sentences so you can tell me your questions about this exercise next class. Okay, also in the following one, for example, you are going to complete them. Just write your answers, don't worry. Okay, and you are going to complete the sentence with the right relative pronoun that you need. Okay, so be very careful. Remember that we have the chart that is going to help you to decide which is the right pronoun that you need to use depending on your subject. Okay, and also I think that this one we are going to be doing it, for example, in class. Okay, just read it carefully so we can know, or you can check it. For example, here you have some examples on how to complete or how to join specifically the sentences that we can join, for example, two sentences in only one by using the relative pronouns and the relative clauses. Okay, for example, here the letter B, it is the answer, this one. For example, we have the woman who opened the door was wearing a yellow dress. We join this sentence and this sentence in only one. Okay, the same for example with letter C. You are going to have the people who live next door to us are very nice. For example, here also we join these sentences. Check this out that we do it by adding a relative pronoun. Okay, the letter D, for example, it is going to be the policeman who stopped our car wasn't very friendly. The same. We are joining the sentences with a relative pronoun. In this case, who, because remember that we are talking about people. Actually, in all of them, we are talking about people. And in letter E, for example, it is going to be the same. The boy who broke the window ran away. Okay, be very careful with this one. I want you to analyze which were the things, for example, that here we did in order to join the sentences. Try to analyze and try to get away, for example, on how to join these sentences that you have here in your screen. Okay, so we can discuss this kind of writing in our following class. Okay, so be very careful with this one. As I was telling you, analyze the sentences so you can find it easier. The way that we are going to be joining sentences also in our studies, it would be easier for you if you analyze these ones first. Okay, so that's it guys about this topic. Remember that you need to drop your comment in case that you have any question, or also the examples that you can form after watching the class. Okay, remember that any question we are going to be checking it at class. And that's it for today's lesson. I'll see you soon, guys.